Today we're going to make some Turkish flatbread. It's a nice quick bread. It does rise for an hour, but then you end up frying it on a griddle or in a frying pan rather than baking in the oven, and it bakes up quite quickly. We're going to start with 2/3 of a cup of warm milk and 2/3 of a cup of warm water. You want your liquids to be warm so that it can work well with your yeast. I also have 2 teaspoons of my yeast. So I'm just going to get my yeast in with the warm ingredients right away so that it can start to work. And yeast also really likes sugar, so we're going to get our sugar in there as well. I have 2 teaspoons of sugar. I'm just doing a single batch, it makes 6 to 8 depending what size you make. You can easily double this if you need to make quite a few more. So we're going to put 2 teaspoons of sugar in there, as well as a teaspoon of salt. And I have 3 tablespoons of olive oil. We just throw everything in the mixer and let the mixer do all our work for us. And I have 3½ cups of flour. So we're just going to get the mixer going. And we're going to probably let this knead for about 3 minutes or so. So you can come take a look. This is just all the wet ingredients mixing in with the flour and stuff. So we're going to just let this go, and I'll show you what this looks like after about 3 minutes. Alright, our dough has been mixing for about 3 minutes, and it's a nice soft dough. It came together really nice. There's no dough stuck on the side of my bowl even, and I'm just going to pull it off. So it's just a nice soft dough, and I'm just going to let this, and it's nice and warm. Just make sure that milk and that water is nice and warm. And we're going to just let this rise. I'm going to maybe I'll brush a little bit of oil on this so it doesn't say that. Sometimes they like you to do that so it doesn't dry out, but I don't think it's going to. I'm just going to cover this. Sometimes people like to brush a little bit of oil on so it doesn't dry out, but you make sure it's got a good cover on it so that it won't dry out. And we're going to let this rise for an hour so that it can double in size. Alright, I wanted to cut my time down a little bit here because dinner's coming up pretty soon. If you want to cut some time off of your rise, get a hot water bottle, put some boiling water in there and put it underneath and create like a little mini proofing oven. So I've cut my 1 hour down to about probably 40 minutes, 45 minutes, and my dough has doubled in size. So I'm going to take my dough, and I'm going to make 8 because there's 4 people here for dinner tonight, so that would give 2 each. So you're going to just get your dough cutter, divide that into 8 pieces. And the pieces that you're not using while you're frying up the rest, just make sure you keep them covered so they don't dry out. So I'm just going to put a few of these off to the side. Just keep my tea towel over them. And you're going to get your nice, I'm just going to put a bit of a ball here, and then I'm going to roll it out. You want to make about, I don't know, tell us 1/4 inch thick. So what is that going to be? Let's see. Probably about a 6 inch or so round. And if you need a little bit of flour, you can use a little bit. Try not to use too much, but you don't want it to stick to the counter. And if they're not perfect, don't worry about that. It's still going to taste good. So that's probably about a good 6 inch one. And I have my griddle heating up, so I'll be able to do 2 at a time. So I'm just going to be rolling these out while they're cooking, then I'll roll out the next one so that I'm not letting them dry out. I want to be able to keep them nice and moist. So just get these couple of rolled out at a time, or one if you only have a smaller frying pan. And we're going to get these on our griddle, so I'll show you how we're going to cook those up. Alright, make sure your griddle is nice and hot. And I did put some oil down just to make sure it's not going to, because you want them to get nice and golden. I'm also going to put a little bit of butter on this side, melted butter on this side here, so that when I flip it, it's going to brown on this side as well. These only take about 3 minutes or so to cook. I'm going to be flipping them a couple of times. So I'll probably flip it 3 or 4 times, and sometimes, not always, they're actually supposed to really puff up and separate. It very much, I find, it has to do with the perfect temperature of the griddle. Sometimes my griddle's a little too hot or a little too cool, and it won't do it. Sometimes it's not until I get close to the end of my batch that all of a sudden I get the perfect one that really puffs up and it separates. So what it's doing, it's kind of steaming inside, and that way you know it's actually cooked all the way through. But it's fine. I do know that in 3 or 4 minutes they are completely done. So I'm just going to flip these a few times. If they do puff, great. If they don't, it's okay. Just make sure you cook it for the 3 to 4 minutes. Probably closer to 3. I don't find they take very long. This one here is puffing a little bit, so I do know it's cooking in the middle. My griddle is a little hot. I do find the cast iron gets quite hot. So, see, this one here has got a bubble here, but usually what can happen is the whole thing can get a nice big bubble on it, and that will flatten after you cool it, which is fine, but it's actually just kind of fun to see if it does poof up on you. It doesn't always do it for me, but that's okay. So once these are cooked up, I'll probably give it another 30 seconds. We're going to take them off, and I'll just show you what we do with them while we set them aside. All right, see the nice puff on this one? That one really puffed up. This one didn't do it so much. That's okay, not a big deal. So when I take them off, what I do is I'll brush a little bit of melted butter on. And then you put just a little bit of parsley and a little bit of red pepper flakes for a little bit of spice and heat on there. And I just keep them off to the side here and cover them up while I'm cooking them all up. And then whatever bubble does come up is going to flatten as it sits aside, because it is a flatbread. The bubbling in there just shows you that you've cooked it all the way through. And I'm just going to keep that covered so it stays nice and warm. And we'll get the next batch on.